SACC 4th Annual Gala here in New Jersey. It's a great opportunity for the SICK community to be a part of this organization and this membership. It's a great opportunity for people to connect and meet new people. It's an opportunity that provides community building, relationship building, and network growing for people within the organization. I've been here for the first time, and it's a great opportunity for me to see people, the community growing up, people networking and actually helping others within the community.
We are here for the SACC event, and it's a very, very big platform for all the SICK entrepreneurs, and we wish them a very, very good luck.
My best wishes to SACC for the amazing job they are doing, providing a platform for SICK community, for ages to come, bringing entrepreneurship to SICK community. Best wishes to Sunny Gala and all the leadership of SACC. Thank you.
मैं हरपाल सिंह चंडीगढ़ तो आया SACC एक बहुत बढ़िया प्लेटफॉर्म है एंड दे आर डूइंग वेरी 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 गुड मैंटर्स बना रहे ने नवी जनरेशन ਨੂੰ ਇਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਸਿੱਖ ਐਂਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਨਰਸ ਹੂ ਆਰ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ देयर ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁਣ ਨਵੀਂ ਪਨੀਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਟੂ ਪਰਫਾਰਮ ਔਰ ਇਹ ਬੈਸਟ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਰੀਅਲੀ ਡੂਇੰਗ ਅ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਟੂ ਦ ਨੇਸ਼ਨ
Really excited to be here. Looking forward to meeting and networking with many professionals, SICK professionals. I think it's a great opportunity so we can all grow together and make our mark in America.
Excellent opportunity to connect with other SICK professionals, help each other out, create a network, and see how we can help the new generation that's coming up, along with making sure that the existing generation that is there that's been successful, what it is that we can learn from them and make an example out of it so that we can excel as well.
This is a great platform for youth, for our young professionals, SICKs to connect, and for our careers. If you want to start a business, it's a great way to start and get to know people and to socialize. It's a great opportunity for us, for our youth.
Yeah, this gives us an opportunity to connect with our community and provide for our community, and this enables our youth to grow up in this world. There's a lot of bad in this world, so it allows for us to set a good example for everyone.
And we are looking for the more opportunity, how we can bring our own culture into the different kind of the businesses and how we can help and promote other people who are into our industries as well. So we are looking for an opportunity where we can bring our experience and basically collaborate with the other people as well. So it's really a great platform, and that's where we are here for.
Here's wishing the SICK American Chamber of Commerce all the very best in their journey of success. Looking forward to the 4th Annual Gala. All the best, guys.
Sat Sri Akal Ji, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 4th Annual SICK American Chamber of Commerce Gala Celebration. My name is Kamaljit Kaur Kala, and I am honored to be your MC for this evening's festivities. We, the Gala team and our board, have had a very eventful year. It has had a lot of hard work, laughter, sometimes laughter, hard work, and some tears mixed in between. Some sleepless nights for me and Jasminder. Where is she? Give her a shout out. But at the end of the day, we are very pleased with the presentation that we have for you this evening. The gods are going to be with us, and the snow is going to slow down, and thank you all for supporting us this evening. Your presence here shows us tonight that you have a commitment to joining forces with us, coming together in unity and teamwork to foster and support an institution that is strong and driven by mutual success. We are committed to the SACC and have come here together to show our support. So to all of you, a big round of applause. The SACC works diligently to foster support for our community, but in a commerce-based initiative, whether that's through our Partner Connect, our Mentor Connect, Career Connect, or Capital Connect. Yes, we have a lot of connects, but that's the purpose of this organization, is connecting our business community with the right people for them to be able to be successful. This year, we are very excited in our Capital Connect to be introducing our Angel Fund and our Credit Union, which are being led by two of our core members, Harjeet Singh and Harveer Singh. If you have any questions, they're outside. That's a little plug. So you see, connections are the key in our community. Each of us has a story of how we became successful. Some of us walked up 2 hills in the snow with 1 chappal in order to succeed. But it was a long and arduous journey. Our goal is to make sure that the business community today and future generations have an easier path to follow, a little less arduous of a journey. This year's event is a little different than previous years in terms of formatting. We've got the content, and we want to make sure that we have audience interaction as well. So we've got only 3 speakers, but wow, are they some phenomenal speakers for you today. We have Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, the CEO of Joyous, a strong female leader in companies like Google and Polyvore, who will be leading off our show tonight. We have Fred Abrahami, the owner of Quark City and former CEO of Quark Software, and a dear friend of ours who is here today. We have Gurvinder Suri, the ex-CEO of Optimal Solutions, which he sold to NTT Data in 2013, and who is a very strong community leader and a voice for all of Punjabi. And at last but not least, we have a dear friend of the SACC, the head of international news at Fox, and the host of the Vip Jaswal Report. We have our dear friend, Vip Jaswal, who will be moderating a panel discussion of our 3 speakers. And then, to close out our show, we will all be serenaded by our dear friend, Bikram Singh. We will also be having raffles throughout the event, and our speakers will actually be the ones who will be choosing the winners. So as we said in our email blasts, I know many of you decided that, okay, I registered, I get it. The early birds will be picked by Ms. Sukhinder Cassidy. So those of you that registered early, when Ms. Cassidy finishes her presentation, she will be picking the winners. Then we will have another award ceremony where Data Wind has given us 10 Akash tablets to be raffled off. Mr. Abrahami will be raffling off another 5. And then we also have 2 more gifts as well from Indus Bank. So, I'm just trying to remember, do I have any more gifts? Don't worry, I'll hit the crowd and see if I can find any more. We have a lot of business owners out here, but I like to gift. So without much further ado, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that I will be using the back screen a lot this evening, but I would like to introduce you to our first speaker, Ms. Sukhinder Singh Cassidy.
Sukhinder Singh Cassidy is founder and chairman of Joyous. Prior to founding Joyous, she spent 18 years as a leading consumer internet and media executive at global and early-stage companies including Google, Amazon, Polyvore, Yodlee, and News Corporation. A graduate of the Richard Ivey School of Business at the University of Western Ontario, Canada, she has most recently served as CEO and chairman of the board at the leading social commerce site, Polyvore, and CEO in residence with Excel Partners. From 2003 to 2009, Sukhinder was a senior executive at Google, president of the Asia Pacific and Latin American regions. Sukhinder currently serves on the board of TripAdvisor and Formspring, and as an advisor to Twitter and Princeton University's Department of Computer Science. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Sukhinder Singh Cassidy.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I know the SACC American Chamber of Commerce worked, I think, over the last 2 years to try and get me to this event, and I was so disappointed not to make it last year and so delighted to make it this year. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really... So I understand that the theme of this year's gala is really about shared success and shared community. And it was interesting because when the organizers called me and asked me to think about what I might want to speak about, it was really interesting and fun to be able to like reframe the lens of some of the things I think are really important from a leadership perspective into the people who taught me those lessons. And it was fun for me to be able to do it. So with that, hopefully you find a little bit of what I've done useful. It's on the back screen. I'll be totally happy if you look there. And really, what I'd love to do is actually share with you a perspective on leadership from the people who taught it to me. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who would basically tell you that when people ask me who my business hero is, in fact, my hero, it would be my father. He passed away in 2000, but there is no doubt that from a personal and from a professional perspective, he was the single biggest influence in my life. The single biggest. And when people ask, well, if you had a lesson to give on leadership, well, where does it start? I always say it starts with this one thing, which is you should know your trademark strength. So if I were to ask you in the room, how many of you know your trademark strength? How many of you could put up your hand and tell me what it is in 1 or 2 words? So I saw one hand go up, maybe 2. And that's really interesting, right? Because when you go about building a company, or in fact building anything, if you're the leader of that thing, how can you start without knowing what you're good at? Not just what you're good at, what you're uniquely good at. Because you're about to build an entire organization around it. But if I think about who gave me that lesson, it is undeniably my father. So my father was a doctor in St. Catharines, Ontario. He was born in East Africa and immigrated when he was young. But he wasn't just a doctor, he was also an entrepreneur. He really loved running his medical practice. He ran it with my mom for 30 years together before he passed away. And not only did he love running a medical practice, well, my goodness, he loved finance, he loved stocks. He bought AOL in the early 1980s, far before I was in the internet industry. My father was buying AOL stock and trading it on the stock market when he was 7 years old. Right? So when I think back to that growing up, when I was 7, he taught me how to do his income taxes. By the time I was 11, I was doing all of his books. And I can only tell you that early on, probably as early on as 12, 13, 14, like my love of business was being fostered by my father. And he was steering a path for me, and I think looking at what I was good at and helping it take shape, right? Long before I knew what it was, my father knew what it was. But by the time I was 17, 18, 19, I can tell you, I had an indelible sense that not only was I going to go into business, but that I had a purpose in this world, right? And that maybe that purpose would manifest itself through my energy or through my mind, which, loved science and writing and math and all of these things. But that was all fueled by my father. And so whether it's right or wrong, from very early on, he made me believe I was here for a reason. And I had something to give. And that I had some sort of gift. Right? So he imbued that in me. And I think when I say to business leaders all the time, if you're going to be great, right, you need to understand what you're uniquely good at. And I think my father saw that in me and he fostered it, right? And so very early on, Like if I were to think about where my trademark strength came from, energy or passion or love of entrepreneurship, I can tell you it came from my father, right? And from my father seeing it in me, and then really, you know, driving it to the fore. Next slide, please. So now we dial forward a few years, and my father has, you know, given me this sense that I can do anything. My family is very conservative, you know, like many Indian families are. You know, I want to go to New York, and I want to work for Merrill Lynch, and I want to work on Wall Street. And my father is the person who says, go, go, buy a train ticket and go down. And I bought a train ticket, and I went down to Merrill Lynch, and I got myself an interview, and I got myself a job. And that's how I got to Wall Street. Right? Because Merrill Lynch at that time didn't come up to Canada to recruit. And so I'm there, and then I intersect with another major person who influenced my career, a guy named Henry Michaels, affectionately called Henry Hank the Crank Michaels. Right? That's what Henry would call himself. And he was a managing director at Merrill Lynch. And very early on, you know, Henry was my first boss. Right? And I won't tell you, you know, what it took me to get that job at Merrill, but suffice to say, it didn't go smoothly. It was a long fight for me to get the job I wanted at Wall Street. So when I finally got there, I felt like I had something to prove. And my very first boss was this guy, Henry. And he basically sat me down on my very first days, and he gave me this assignment, and he just told me the story of how when he was an analyst, he just worked harder than anybody else, right? And they used to call him Hank the Crank, right, as a joke. But of course, he was one of Merrill Lynch's youngest managing directors, and I got to work for him. And Henry pretty quickly inundated me with work, right? And interesting work. And he didn't put anybody between me and him. And that was really interesting because I was 24 years old and I was working for somebody who was many, many years older, and typically you get layered when you're on Wall Street, and they put 2 or 3 people in between you. And Henry just let me work directly with him. And he gave me this chance to prove myself. And I learned that, in fact, I've always been that guy. I have always been that person who works harder than they need to. I can't tell you why, right? It annoys some people that I'm always working, you know, but it just is what it is. That's who I am. And all I can tell you is when you think about leadership, and in fact, those of you who've already achieved success, you know it to be true. And those of you who are thinking about how to be more successful, there is no substitute for working harder than anyone else. There's just none. So when my teams complain to me about how hard they work, I'm like, guys, I don't want to hear it. Your job is, in fact, to work really hard, right? Really hard. And I think when I think about the person who fostered that in me, it was undoubtedly Henry, right? So I had it, he fueled it. Next slide, please. So it's interesting because then, you know, I go on to have a pretty good career at Merrill. They send me to London, which is great. When I'm in London, I decide that I want to move from investment banking to working, you know, for a big media company. I end up working for News Corp. I worked for their satellite television division called B-Sky-B, British Sky Broadcasting, which at the time was the world's largest satellite broadcaster, for their CEO and COO. And I've been there a couple years, and I really, really want to be an entrepreneur because my father seeded that in me. And I don't know how. I'm 26 years old. So I quit my job and I moved to Silicon Valley. Right? And I end up there early in 97. And when I get there, I have one job experience which isn't so great, but pretty quickly I end up working for 4 Indian entrepreneurs. One of them is this guy, Venki Harinarayan, who's an investor in my current company. Venki at that time is a young grad from Stanford, computer science grad. He started a company, and within 6 months he sells it to Amazon for $120 million. And Venki has gone on to become a great, great entrepreneur in the Valley. Right? He's a serial entrepreneur, he's many exits. But the thing that attracted me to Venki when I got to Silicon Valley was I sat down in this room of 4 male Indian entrepreneurs. It was my first experience in the Valley, my first experience working for somebody who was Indian. But you know, what attracted me to Venki was not his company, it was him. He was just that smart. And he knew things so incredibly deeply. Right? And so his tag phrase for his first company was, the database is the internet. And in fact, the company went out and grabbed information on the prices of different products and was a price comparison engine. And when Amazon bought it, Jeff Bezos bought it, he bought it for that technology. You know, but But what I learned when I went to Jungle was Venki gave me the opportunity to be what's called a business development person. Somebody who got on the phone and convinced, in the early days, online merchants to give Jungle their data, their online data. And I started, and I didn't have any experience. I had some experience selling from my college summer days, but not that much. But I got on the phone, and I just started to call people like Barnes & Noble and J. Crew and what have you. And it turns out we were able to be really successful in that. And when Amazon bought the company for that asset. Because Jeff Bezos, in the early days of Amazon, had a vision that Amazon should be a place where you not only bought the stuff they had, but if he didn't have the product, he should show you the merchant who did. So that's why I bought the company. And I was the biz dev person who was doing those deals. So what I was doing turned out to be really valuable. So early on, I got my start in my career in Silicon Valley knowing one thing, which is called business development. And I always say, in Silicon Valley, the most powerful people are engineers. The second most powerful people are people who know how to raise money. And there's a reason for that, because even engineers value people who know how to make their technology commercially viable and get somebody to buy it. And so it was very interesting that my first experience being successful in Silicon Valley was as a salesperson, as a business development executive. And I stayed in the business development role for the vast majority of my career. I went on to start my own company, a company called Yodlee, right after Amazon, as the VP of Business Development. So I did all our first deals to license our technology. I got hired by Google to do the first deals for Local and Maps, to launch Local and Maps as a product, the product we use on our phones today. And then I went over and I ran revenue for everything between China and Brazil. Right? So all of those countries reported to me. But it was all a revenue-producing job. So people are always like, how did you get to be a CEO? How did you get to be a president? And I'm like, simple. I took what I was good at, business development, and I just kept doing it. And I built my reputation on it. And so from a very early age, including in Silicon Valley, I spent 18 years bringing in revenue and bringing in partnerships. And that was the path to success. So when people always ask me, how do you do something? I'm not a big believer in breadth. I am a big believer in depth, in the idea that if you know something deeply, that knowledge is powerful, right? And so you can flip from thing to thing to thing. But when you look at great careers, they're built on deep knowledge. Malcolm Gladwell says the same thing in his book, right? Outliers. It's all about 10,000 plus hours at one thing, right? I saw that in Venki. He gave me the chance for it to be business development, and in fact, I built my career on it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, I go on from Jungle and Amazon to starting my own company, a company called Yodlee, which we'll come to in a moment. And after I've been at Yodlee for 5 years and we've raised a lot of venture capital, I decide that I am thinking about what I'm going to do next. And luckily for me, a guy named Omid Kordestani, who's Google's chief business officer, gives me a call. And at the time, Google is about 1,000 people. And I have met Omid previously because Google and Yodlee, my company, shared investors. So I met the folks at Google when the company was very young. And 5 years later, when I was thinking of going, Omid called me and said, come to Google. And so I did know that I wanted to go. I thought I wanted to start another company. And then he called me again later and he said, I know I have an entrepreneurial opportunity for you. I know you want to start another company after Yodlee, but the entrepreneurial opportunity is to come help us figure out this space called Local and Maps. Right? Yahoo is a product. There's a product called MapQuest. Google needs a product in Local and Maps. And in fact, I took a look at the business opportunity, and in 2 weeks, I went to Google because I was so clear that there was such an opportunity there. But the most amazing thing Omid did was certainly not hire me. The most amazing thing Omid did was build a team that was so strong that you look at it in hindsight and you say, wow, he really knew how to hire great talent. So he hired me, but he never stopped himself short of hiring talent that would threaten him, that would, he never worried about that. He just hired the singularly best people he could find. And in fact, it's one of the things that Google is known for. Right? So my peer group included Sheryl Sandberg, CEO of Facebook, Tim Armstrong, CEO of AOL, David Rosenblatt, the CEO of a company called DoubleClick, right, that was sold to Google. So when I look at that peer group, first of all, I feel honored to have been in that group. But more importantly, I look at Omid, my boss, and I'm like, my goodness. Never took his eye off hiring the very best talent he could find. And then he hired another guy, a guy named Nikesh Arora, to run Europe. And Nikesh went on and became Omid's successor. So Omid retired in 2009, and Nikesh, another Indian, became Google's chief revenue officer for 4 years. He just left. And my boss, Omid, just went back into the driver's seat of Google after being retired and is now the chief business officer again. So he took it from 0 to 26 billion. He retired between 26 billion and about 40, and he's back in the driver's seat as the chief business officer. But I look at Omid and I was like, what is it that he did right? And what's really interesting is what he did right is he found great talent. But it's not in the obvious places, and you see that in Silicon Valley. All the people I described, Tim, Cheryl, myself, David, Nikesh, none of us had ever done the job before they hired us for. How interesting is that? Any of us could legitimately have been his successors, right? One of us was, right? The rest all went on to start companies or run big companies, right? So what did he do right? He focused less on what somebody's historical experience has been, and he focused on their intellect, the diversity of their experiences, and he focused on the very, very best people he could find. And the person I learned that from was him. Next slide, please. So, I'm at Google, I have a fabulous career, and of course I'm itching to be an entrepreneur again, and I'm thinking about what I want to do. And I go to a company called Polywar, which is a small company in the online space, and shortly thereafter I start my second company, the company I'm running now called Joyous. And Joyous is at the intersection of video and shopping. Nothing exists like it on the internet. And the closest analogy might be a shopping channel like QVC or HSN. These are multi-billion-dollar public companies. But in the world of online video, there's YouTube, and there's a ton of other startups that are doing online video. And there is nothing in shopping around video. No shopping sites that are like shopping channels like you see on television. And so it was probably 2000, or late 2010, early 2011, and I had the idea, late 2010, and I had the idea for Joyous. And I was completely frozen at the idea of starting a company. I did not want to start another company. I'd had all the success at Google. I had since left Google, but I was worried about what everyone would think. Because it's really hard to start a company. It may not work. It may still not work. It may fail, right? And now I have some amount of reputation and some amount of ego, right? Ego in it. I can just fail, flat out. And in fact, the chances are, they're pretty darn high I'm gonna fail. And so I was really paralyzed at the idea of starting a company. Everybody thought it would come so naturally to me. People called me a serial entrepreneur. But I was really like, wow, what if I do this and I fail? And I called up a guy named Michael Deary, who's an investor in Joyous. He runs a very successful angel fund in the Valley called Harrison Metal. And I said to Michael, and I talked to Michael about it. I told him about the idea. He was the first person I called. And I was like, am I crazy? Am I crazy to think that one day online people will watch video and buy stuff from it? Is that crazy? And he said, he was the person who sort of said to me, when the time I was feeling most anxious, of course, you'll never know until you try, right? And you would think that, after a very successful career in the Valley, I wouldn't need to hear that. But I did. I did. Because at that time, the thing that was keeping me paralyzed was not financial risk. That was my first company, right? But it was ego risk, right? So if what's preventing you from trying something is ego risk, let it go. Because you know what? That's the best kind of risk to take. Right? The risk that isn't worth taking is the risk of regret. The risk that one day you're going to look back at it and think, I should have done it, but for the fact that I worried about what other people would think if I failed. And that's what Michael taught me. Next slide, please. So the last two things I want to talk about come from two other important people in my life. One is a guy named Anil Arora. So Anil is the CEO of a company called Yodlee, my first company, that he just took public 15 years later. So it went public on NASDAQ in Q4 this year. And I'm really proud of the fact that it went public. But while I was associated with it and I was its founder, I left at year 5. He stuck it out till year 15. Right? I live in a world in Silicon Valley, and maybe some of you do too who are in the IT sector, where in technology in particular, perseverance is very underrated. People are always on to the next hot new thing. But if you look at truly great companies and anything truly great, it takes a tremendous amount of time. And basically, when I look at Anil, you know, I consider myself a founder, but I consider him far more one. Think about the perseverance to stick with that for 15 years, to see it to an outcome. I left at year 5. I went to Google, right? And he stayed and he built it, you know, as any founder would do, despite the fact that he wasn't, right, into something great. Next slide, please. So the other important person in my career is my Babaji, the man that my father followed for many, many years. His name is Bhai Mahinder Singh Ji, and he runs the Guru Nanak Nishkam Sevak Jatha in Birmingham, in England. And every year, for twice a year, my parents would take me there, growing up. And he was my father's dear friend before he, in fact, succeeded and became the Babaji for that Gurdwara. Right. Shortly before I started Joyous, I had a company in between, a company called Polyvore, where I was CEO. Polyvore is a thriving company. I quit after 6 months. I quit for my first CEO job. And I quit because the founder and I didn't get along. We didn't see eye to eye. We wanted to run the company 2 different ways. And you can imagine that the decision to go to become CEO of somebody else's company and to quit before I started my next company was a very painful decision. Because in fact, that thing we talked about, ego risk, I learned it, right? I left Google, I went to become CEO of somebody else's company, and I quit. I failed. So in fact, when I was looking to start Joyous, all I could think is like, wow, what if I have another failure? What's it gonna look like? And in between that, right shortly after Polyvore, I left Polyvore, I was very upset, and Babaji was over in Canada visiting, I think he'd come to New York to come to the UN, and he came up to Canada and was at my family's house, and I had the opportunity to go see him, and he asked me how it was going at Polyvore. And I teared up because I had just left, and it was brutal, right? And I sat down with him, and he basically said, it'll be okay. There'll be another job. It will all work out. You know, your children need you now. And my son had just been born. He was, his name is Kieran, and he was maybe a year old. You know, and he reminded me of exactly what my father would have said at the same time, which is in my 20s and my 30s, I still thought everything was in my control, despite the fact that my father taught me from a very young age that nothing's in my control and that everything is in God's control. But nonetheless, I'm somebody who puts my head down and I work hard, and I believe I can just drive through anything, right? And so I'm reminded again, as I have a failure later in my career, that in fact, what my father would have said and what my Babaji said are the same thing, which is all you can do is put in the effort. Part of real success is letting go of the outcome. And by the way, I struggle with that very, very much. But I look at the lesson my father taught me, and then Babaji as well, and I know he has exactly the same message for me, which you can put in everything, and at some point you just need to let go. And what's going to happen is going to happen. And it is the history of both leadership and life. Next slide, please. And so I come back to this, right? When people ask me what grounds me, people talk a lot about, like, where do you get your strength? What is it you want to do? What do you want to be known for? I come back to, in fact, the very first role model I had in my life, my father. I told you that he seeded me with a sense that I had something special to contribute. But he also seeded me with a value system that taught me that everything happens for a reason. And that even for me, even in business, there is a higher plan. So I believed from a very early age that my way to contribute to the world was through business. I continue to believe that. So when things don't go well, and I get very upset when they don't, the reality is what keeps me stable is in fact all that I owe to my father, because I am convinced there's a higher plan and there's something at work that I don't see, and that makes it okay, right? And that's how I live with the sort of peaks and the valleys of being in business and on being a business leader and all that goes along with that. Next slide, please. So I'm going to finish up on a couple things. Because as I said, it was very fun for me to go through this exercise of thinking, like, what could I say to you about being an entrepreneur or being a leader that's worth saying? And it was fun for me to look back on all of these people in my life. Of course, none of whom you know, right? None of whom many people know. It doesn't matter. I was saying, well, gosh, is it enough to just share lessons? Because as I look back through the thread of those people, I was like, what is that? What is it about them that made them so impactful on my life? And I came to this list. And it's really interesting because for me, you can talk about leadership, but what's even more interesting if you want to talk about real leadership is to talk about character, right? I don't have these things, but they do. And it was the common thread I could find through all of them. Humility, empathy, acceptance. Whenever I was with these people, I felt like not only was I enough, I was more than enough with all my flaws, right? Presence. Every time I was in the room with them, I never felt like they were thinking about the next thing. Just presence, being present, right? Patience. I have none, they have a lot. I have none, they have a lot, right? And then clarity of purpose. Every time you're in the room with any one of these people, just feel like, they know why they're here, they know what they're here for, they're just so clear, there's no distraction. So as we finish up this, if you could go to the next slide, please. I just want to leave you with one final thought, which is it's all well and good to talk about great leadership. And I'm glad you've given me the opportunity to do that today. I'm delighted, in fact, right? And I hope some of what I've said just reminds you of what's important on that leadership journey. But quite frankly, even leadership lessons, even those things are transient, right? Great leaders come from great character, right? And if you have one, you will have the other. So if you strive on anything, for anything on this list, yes, take all the lessons and those are good reminders and think of them as your checklist. Take those character traits and the people who I admire and use that as your grounding path. Thank you very much.
So now our early bird registrants. As we said, everybody first, a big round of applause for Jasminder, everybody. She worked so hard in putting this gala together. A very big round of applause. So our early birds, when we call your name, come on up.
Rajdeep Singh?
Rajdeep Singh. Come on up. Arvinder Singh. Should we call up his wife, Kiran? Where is Arvinder Singh? Minhas. There he is. Everybody come on up. See, early bird does count. Next year, you all will be registered in advance. Okay. Let's go, Arvinder. Very nice. Thank you very much. Great. See, big round of applause, everybody, for our early bird registrants. We will start registering early. Our next speaker of the evening is a wonderful man who shows such hospitality every time we go to India. Ladies and gentlemen, my screen in the back, Fred Abrahami.
Fred Ibrahimi is a serial entrepreneur and the former CEO of Quark Software. He is the owner of Cork City, a development company in Mohali, Punjab, that includes world-class residential, commercial, retail, and hotel projects, and is in an IT special economic zone. He began his journey in 1986 when Fred and his partner Tim started the development of Cork Express. More than 5 million copies were sold, generating several $1 billion in revenue. During the construction of Cork headquarters in Mohali, it became clear that the expertise in development of infrastructure in Punjab was very limited. Fred decided to purchase over 2,000 acres of land to develop infrastructure in Punjab. To achieve this, Cork City was created with a staff of engineers, architects, accountants, and other professionals, in turn creating a workforce with a marketable skill. He is the father of IT parks in Punjab and a man who has given back to our community. Ladies and gentlemen, Fred Ibrahimi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm truly honored to be in front of such an amazing audience. Thank you for inviting me. I usually talk too much, but I was told I'm on a leash. I already have one leash by my wife as how much I walk. But they told me also they're watching every second. So I put the items that I have to talk to so I don't forget it. Today is the first day of spring. It's the spring equinox. For us Persian, and as you know us as Parsis in India, this is a very, very important time. We have been celebrating it for 6,000 years at least, and I understand many Indians and Punjabis do the same. So congratulations for Nowruz. Happy New Year. Thank you. As I look at this audience and I listen to Sikandar speech, I say, wow, this is amazing IQ in this room. I'm sure as you have come to New Jersey, the average IQ of New Jersey has gone up. I wonder what happened to average IQ of the places you came from. You do the calculation. You see, you're so smart that you increase the average. That's what entrepreneurs are about. And with that comes a responsibility to help others that they are not as fortunate. I believe you don't do anything in life that affects other people without consulting them, without talking them, without being in their shoes and looking at it from their point of view. So I did a little survey, and it seems to me the interest was, for some people at least, to know how in the world I did what I have done. So I'm going to very briefly and fast share with you some of my failures and so-called successes. But before I get there, I think an important question you should all ask yourself is, what is success? We have illusion about what success is and what is failure. Let me share with you one experience I had personally, or two of them. Several years, at least 3 years anyway, before Steve Jobs did the first Apple computer, I did the conceptual design as a partner in a firm of a first microprocessor-based personal computer. It's still sitting in one of it is sitting in my basement in Denver. We manufacture 80 of them in Guam because government Guam wanted high technology and gave us a grant for doing it. We sold 8 of them. We had 12 returns. The reason was none of them worked. Now to you, was that success or failure? Success is not always measured by spreadsheet and bank accounts. It is not always what other people think of you. The very important issue being a successful entrepreneur is you have to learn to use different measures as what is success and what is failure. I'll give you another example. I funded as a venture funder and as a mentor a couple of brothers called Deba brothers. They came with their predecessor, the first version of iPad. We had, beside me, there was LG and Samsung as partners because I thought we need to have somebody who has better understanding of me in manufacturing. The company could never work. They could never come with a product. And this is my point. Execution is extremely important. So we found an idiot in Sun Microsystem and sold it to them for $30-some million and made some money. Was that success or failure? I don't think so. I don't think that was success just because we made some money. Look at what we lost. So before anything else, let's make sure we understand what success and failure is. But anyway, there are some fundamental issues that you need to be successful, in my opinion. You have to be truthful, especially to yourself. The worst thing is to lie to yourself. So if you feel good about something, if you believe in something, go at it. Don't lie to yourself. And if you're bad at it, admit it. I think that's what you were talking about. Know your strength. Don't lie to yourself. And don't do something because somebody else has told you to do that and you are not happy with it. I personally believe that the best thing to do, whether it's software, hardware, services, buildings, growing nuts or whatever, and I do many of these things, is that you have to go for the best quality. If you have the highest market share, your cost is much lower, it's much easier. When you have only 10% market share of something in software business, that means you're out of business. You have to have significant market share to be successful. You have to add quality. You have to add value to what you do. If you take two pieces and you put them together, they have to be producing much more. You have to, of course, the most important issue, have respect and really care and love your customer, your employees, your suppliers. I know this is hard to believe, but how could you possibly be successful if any of these people are not successful? The other issue is very important. You have to take risk. You can't be an entrepreneur and not take risk. But the way you remedy risk is you calculate what your risk is. Rather than going gambling in a casino, build a casino, where the odds are in your favor, not the other way. Now, I have a methodology of what I do. When I was very young, I read a lot of philosophy. And I remember, maybe I was 10 or 11, I read Descartes' Discours de la méthode. For those of you who are software engineers, you understand that was the father of algorithm. That's how algorithm was developed. You have to have a method. You have to have a way that you go about what you do in life. Obviously, for somebody like me and many of you, technology is important. But there is an ingredient that most of, especially engineers and business people and financial people miss. And that's an understanding of the social sciences. That's an understanding of humanity. You know, there is a reason why people buy iPhone versus Nokia. And it doesn't matter, Microsoft buy Nokia, it's not going to change that. There is something about a product that you fall in love with, and you're willing to pay 3 times the price, and versus junk that exists. Most people don't understand that. There is value in adding quality and designs and these things to this. Now, obviously, it's very important to be innovating. You have to come with new things. You have to do research and analysis of what you do. And very fast, I'm going to give you some example of what I have done successfully, maybe. Court software was an example. We got 85% copy. We sold $5 billion worth of the software. And that was a good thing. And then when the publishing industry went down, I got out of it. Maybe I delayed a little bit, but when you think something is not working, get out. I made many mistakes. I get it. I knew I'm going to talk too much. I didn't mean. But I think the most important things that is dear to my heart is what we are doing in India. We have created thousands of jobs directly. Many, many people in IT industry, at least from northern India, somehow or another were associated with us. That to me is ultimate success. So I like very humbly to invite you and propose that maybe your next session or an additional one, as our guest, to come to Mohali, Punjab, and see what you could do in Punjab together. I have to admit, I'm biased, I'm prejudiced, I'm here to influence you to do something in India, in Punjab specifically. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm a mom and I can project, but not that much. A big round of applause, everybody. 50,000 jobs as a result of this man in Punjab. So now, our next raffle. Ajay Kumar, Sai CPA. Come on up, Ajay. Good job. He's here. Don't be shy. Oh, he's in the back. He's coming. Okay, while we're waiting, Harjeet Singh Pannu, Stanton Chapel. Are you here, Harjeet? Or is it Harjot? It's Harjot Singh. Next time. Harjot Singh. Come on up. Third is Harman Sidhu. Cal Gill from Geo Enviro Consulting, one of our sponsors as well. Baljit Singh from Chugg. There we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Everybody, a big round of applause. So, I'm gonna wait for the presentation. It's ready to go? Okay. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, Gurvinder Suri.
Gurvinder Suri is an entrepreneur and a distinguished community leader. In 1995, Gurvinder founded Optimal Solutions, an enterprise technology consulting firm based in Irving, Texas. He served as Optimal's Chief Executive Officer until its acquisition by NTT Data in December 2013. Under Gurvinder's leadership, Optimal sustained year-over-year revenue growth, building a global workforce of over 1,000 individuals. A decorated entrepreneur, he has received numerous recognitions, including the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2011. His entrepreneurial initiatives are paralleled by his philanthropic work. Among his many charitable works is Beyond Borders, a private charity he founded in 2003, whose mission is to provide care and support for disadvantaged families across territorial borders. Born and raised in India, Mr. Suri received his engineering degree in computer science from MNR Engineering College. Ladies and gentlemen, Gurvinder Suri.
There are a lot of entrepreneurs sitting here. How many entrepreneurs does it take to change a bulb? 20. Because one is changing and 19 are thinking, I can do better than that and faster than that and cheaper than that. That's what entrepreneurs do. And what an amazing impact SACC is doing. What a progressive thinking of Sunny Gala to create a forum like this, to provide a platform to promote entrepreneurship among Sikh community. An amazing impact. We just saw the video. Truly amazing. Will you all join me in giving a big round of applause to Sunny and the leadership team and standing ovation? Go Sunny. Thank you to SACC for inviting me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely honored to be here with you and share the stage with Sukhinder and Fred. They are both remarkable individuals and very accomplished in their field. You heard their stories. Beautiful, wonderful. Last week I asked Gandeep, who reached out to me on behalf of SACC, Gandeep, what would audience want to hear from me? He said, audience are looking for inspiration and motivation, and please cite personal examples from your journey. Oh boy, I thought, inspiration and motivation, what a tough task. What I've been trying to accomplish with my kids for so many years, SACC wants to deliver in 10 minutes. Fortunately, I believe in miracles, and I'm certainly hoping one tonight. So here goes nothing. Not sure if you agree with me or not, but it's hard to talk about yourself. It's kind of awkward. Certainly for me, but I'll try my best. As I go through my story, you will see 5 clear takeaways. Hard work, ambition, genuine relationships, knowledge and expertise, clarity and focus. No two entrepreneur stories are same. Honestly speaking, I did not plan my life as it unfolded. I just did the right thing at the right time, and Vaiguruji was there to guide me in the right direction, leading me to where I am. Some of that is because of the environment and circumstances I grew in, because I believe they had an important role in how I made decisions or handled the situations. So how did the environment and circumstances influence me? I was lucky to be born in a loving family where my parents and extended family, especially my Chachaji and Chachiji, put a lot of importance on education and Sikhi values. Not only that, they demonstrated it through their lifestyle. From early age, I remember two anecdotes which may have shaped my thinking. I remember probably in 5th grade, not doing very well in my exam. I'm scared to show my report card to my grandfather. So I go to my dad and say, Dad, can you please alter the grades? And he says, I can alter the grades for you to show it to Baoji to please him, but you know the truth. You can't hide away from it. That was the first lesson I got about honest dealings in life. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to know where you lack, and you have to work hard to achieve what you want. I was 10 years old, 9, 10 years old. My dad took me to a Diwali party in a colony where a lot of senior officials of a private company lived. And I come from very humble beginnings, very, very humble beginnings. It was amazing to see such big houses all lit up for Diwali. And I asked my dad, what do these guys do to live like this? And my dad told me, they focused on studies. They pursued higher education. And they worked really, really hard. It was clear to me then that to be successful, I have to become best friends with hard work. I also recall that evening telling my mom, Mom, I'm going to buy a very big house, and there's going to be a security guard in the front of it who's going to salute you every time you come and go. I was not afraid to dream big. My father has been one of my great role models. He started as a clerk and retired as a deputy director of audits, second in command in whole agency, all because of his hard work and work ethic. A very humble and honest man amidst a very corrupt government enterprise. Can you imagine wife of a deputy director audit going in a city bus in Delhi shopping or going places to visit her friends? We had no car or TV or fridge or any kind of gadgets. And he was the deputy director of audit because in that salary, we can only provide education, in real salary, provide education to 3 kids. He had a 15-year-old scooter, which he used for personal. A car would come to pick him up and drop him home, but that's it. Whereas people several levels below him, enjoyed all the nicest things you can have. He inspired me to do right. And maybe the circumstances around it inspired me to do big. So with that backdrop of environment and circumstances, let me share some decisions or situations I handled which may have led to my professional success. First, In 1991, I was consulting at Foxmat Drug, a Fortune 500 company. After some time, they wanted to hire me as a full-time employee because I was very good at what I was doing there. But the CIO wouldn't offer me a job of a managerial ranks. He will tell me, Suri, being an Indian coming from India, you'll not be able to manage Americans or women. He offered me a job at analyst level, which was 4 levels below I aspired to be, or I thought I was capable of. I stood my ground. In a few months, he was fired. A new CIO was hired, who hired me as a senior manager. Moral: don't let others tell you what you can or can't do. Have conviction in your capabilities. Second, you get instant respect for what you know and what you can do. When that Foxmat Drug was implementing a German software SAP, I became the best SAP technologist one could be by working day and night. I became well known throughout the country and Europe as a SAP thought leader. Moral: work hard, know knowledge and expertise has extreme value. Third, because of my expertise, large consulting firms, SAP itself, and many of their clients would reach out to me for help. I would consult with them, provide help, free. Never bill them, never charge them. Sometimes over weekends, and even travel to their client sites, but never charge anything, free consulting for 2 years. Because I generally wanted to help them. Moral: build genuine relationships. Fourth, I realized hundreds of millions of dollars were being spent on SAP engagements, and these large companies were not happy with the returns. Knowing that, to manage the risk of these large global companies, I started Optimal in 1995. And Navneet, sitting here, incorporated my company. Moral: take risk when you see the opportunity, but with clear value proposition. Fifth, because of my reputation, relationships, and the value I created for so many clients, many free, they became the biggest investor in my success. They became the biggest proponents for Optimal. And with those relationships, I was introduced to C-level executives of some of the largest companies in the world. And thus, building global consulting company over a period of time. Moral: genuine relationships result multifold in value. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard Sukhinder, you heard Fred. To build growth-oriented, scalable, and sustainable businesses, an entrepreneur must demonstrate several characteristics. Based on my personal journey, among many, like having a great management team, and having great employees, and having right business metrics, and 3 stand out the most for me, for Optimal. Having a bold vision and be able to inspire. Inspire a tribe of people with such a bold vision and such value that they will do everything and anything to make that vision come alive. Optimal had a very bold vision. Be the largest SAP consulting firm in the world. It was a bold, audacious vision. We laughed many times about it, but we pursued it very aggressively. And one day we looked up, we had realized that goal. Second, have a clear, unique value proposition that differentiates you. Me Too's don't last long. Be known for something unique so you can be differentiated for your value you create, and it creates pride in your employees. Optimal was known for fact-based opinion, concise, precise, with no ambiguity. Very strong conviction in our advice. We delivered a true, defensible, and sometimes unpopular messages to our client. But we convinced them to do the right thing, even though it may be difficult politically or from street expectations. And in return, they respected us more. Clarity, focus, and discipline. Stay focused on the core and don't get distracted by noise. It'd be nice to do this, it'd be nice to do that. In 1998, many companies got distracted by dot-com era and they disappeared by 2002. With focus and clarity, Optimal grew every year since inception, even during the recession of 2000 and 2008. As you know, last year Optimal was acquired by NTT Data, the 6th largest consulting firm in the world, and a group of $130 billion entity. All because of relationship and expertise. Friends, in the end, I like to say two things. I am blessed, truly blessed. I am in eternal gratitude to Vaheguruji for what he has done and blessed me. I cannot thank him enough. I cannot thank him enough. In the comments I shared with you, there are many places I've used the word I. But I really means blessed by him to act in a certain way, not me. Secondly, I know this is just professional success. A line from Japji Sahib stays with me all the time. Changa nao rakhai ke, jas kira jaglai, je tis nadar na avai, tab vaat na puche ke. I continue to seek his blessings so I can be recognized in his court someday. Thank you.
So, 2 more prizes. We have Indus Bank was very kind to provide $25 gift cards for 2 of our members. So Mr. Suri, can you please pick 2 cards?
C.A. Jagmohan Singh and somebody from A1 Checker Taxi. Hira, I think.
So we didn't get Hira Taxis, so we're going to pick someone else. No. Oh, another card. Oh, does this have a name?
That's also said. Some of there's no name on it also. Oh no, here it is. Mark from HMG America.
Mark from HMG. There he is. Mark's coming up. Perfect, thank you. First of all, everybody, a big round of applause for Mr. Suri. So we will begin our next portion of our event, which is going to be a moderated panel discussion. The questions have already been chosen for some portion of the panel, and then we will be coming through the audience for your questions. So while you are listening to the conversations, please be coming up with questions. I may just surprise you and come stand right by next to you. So you don't want to be on the spot. Be ready. Everybody should have one question at least. So our moderator for this evening, what can I say, Vip? What can I say? He is a dear friend of the SACC, our moderator and my partner in crime up on every gala. Ladies and gentlemen, a little bit about Vip Jaswal.
Vip Jaswal is the head of international affairs at Fox News Channel and joined the channel in 2005. Vip also hosts the top-rated radio show called The Vip Jaswal Report on Fox News Radio every Sunday. Vip is a consultant speaker to the United States Military Academy and to the United States National Guard. He has a distinct and unique appreciation of the challenges of global businesses across a variety of industries and advises national and private organizations on the successful implementation of international projects. Prior to this, Vip was an international investment banker with HSBC for over a decade, where as part of senior management, he was in leadership roles in various parts of the world. He has worked and lived in Hong Kong, Indonesia, Japan, Thailand, the Philippines, Dubai, Great Britain, and the United States. Vip is an active contributor to various local and national charities and cultural causes. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Vip Jaswal.
Wow. Hello, everyone. This isn't vodka, by the way. Third year running. I feel like a bad rash. Just when you think it's gone, it comes back again. 3 guests. Give them a round of applause, please. Sukhinderji. Brains and beauty, all in one. In fact, when I look at her, I feel like I'm looking in the mirror. And Suriji, been dying to meet you. You remind me of the Godfather. Still waters run deep, and I mean that with all love. Cheers. Fred, what are you doing at the SACC event? Please. Is this mic on?
I think so.
Oh. I want to ask you something.
Yes.
Now, you have businesses in Punjab, right?
Yes.
Do you speak Punjabi?
I understand 30%.
30%.
Punjab means Panj of 5 waters or rivers.
But that's not going to get you the best deal in town, is it?
No.
Okay. Well, before I begin, in Farsi, Subah Khair.
Mutshakir.
Happy Nowruz.
Salam Mubarak.
All Iranians have something in common. Iranian guys. 1 Rolex and a black Mercedes. Is that you?
No. Neither one of it.
Well, most Punjabis do, so Punjabis are also Iranian.
No, I have a leash.
You have a leash?
Yeah. It's my daughter and my wife watching me how many steps I take.
Right. Well, we won't take too many. Okay, so I'm going to Punjabify Fred. Well, Fred, your name is Farhad, right?
Farhad.
You're just like a Punjabi. We all have really nice names and then we make it white. Right? Why do we call you Fred?
Well, actually, it started a teacher of mine. I went to Abadan Institute of Technology.
Is this a long story?
No, it's very brief.
Okay.
He started calling me far out and forehead and...
Well, the only forehead here is on my head. Yeah. You got great head, you highlight.
So he thought Fred is easier.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's Punjabify you because I think your deal-making skills in Punjabi need to be a little better. How about that?
That's probably true.
Okay, so now Punjabis are very passionate people. Punjabi women are even more passionate. When you enter into a negotiation, right, they give you a certain price. Right? Every deal has a price. Yeah?
Yes.
There are 3 words, and that's all you need to learn when you're doing Punjabi. Okay? The first one, you're talking about a deal, you get into it, your first offer. Okay? Now watch me, body language. When they give you that offer, this is what you do. Huh?
Okay.
Move the shoulder. Go for it. They come back to you with a second offer.
That sounds like when I was buying land.
That's right. And the third one, you can never win in a Punjabi deal. So all you got to do to get rid of it, say Hanji.
Hanji, I know. But I thought the three words were Zan. No, not Zan, I'm sorry. Zar, Zameen, and Zan in. Yeah. No? Okay.
I think you've been shafted.
It sounds
So
right.
all you got to say is Twadi.
Kwadi?
Twadi te.
Twadi.
That's it. All right?
Take care.
Let's go. Take a seat. Well, three of you, thank you for coming here. I hope you brought sunblock because the only heat you're going to feel is on your seat. What I'd like to start with, Suki, with you is, and each of you in turn, very quickly, in what you've experienced in life, if people want to learn from you, bless you, what are the three qualities that you need to be successful?
The three qualities that you need to be successful?
Right.
Deep knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah.
I would say never-ending hunger. Never be entitled. It's the opposite of entitlement. Whatever that is, that's what you need. And I would just say integrity.
Farhan.
I agree with everything she said, but I like to add three more things. I think, as I said earlier, it's extremely important that you be honest with yourself. A fool will lie to itself. Second thing is, to me, it's important that you add value and quality.
Right.
The third one, the most important of everything, love your customer, know what your customer wants, and do better for them than they expect you to do.
Suriji?
I think Sukhinder and Fred both have good points, and I think you heard through the comments people shared also. Hard work, character, and expertise and knowledge.
You know, I see before me three champions of diversity. What are the obstacles you've faced in your journey of success, being who you are, whether it's Sikh, Iranian, even a woman, Sukhinder?
Yeah, I perceive that my biggest obstacles didn't come because I was a woman. I perceive my biggest obstacles was when I put myself in situations where who I was didn't match the culture, the values of the organizations I was with. So whenever I sought to be something I wasn't, it never led to success. And whenever who I was and what that organization needed or were culturally were mismatched, it also never led to success. So I think all my obstacles came from either trying to fit myself into somebody else's mold, or conversely, going somewhere where who I innately was not the value system of the company or the organization or the company I kept. They all, I mean, so I've had many failures, but they're all at that intersection.
Fred?
I think, if I be honest with myself, I have to say the problem 9 out of 10 has been me. Because if I dealt with somebody that was not agreeable or difficult or not honest or whatever, it's my fault that I didn't research the situation first to see whom I'm dealing with. Let me be blunt. It's obvious if you want to do business in India, you have to understand the culture over there and you have to know how to handle the situation. I made a mistake first. When I went there at first, I didn't do enough research. I should have known better my potential customers, as I was saying. As contrast, when I was in publishing business, I knew every publisher's publisher better than they knew themselves.
But acceptance is both ways. They have to accept you and you have to accept them.
True, but that's part of the research. You find what is it that they want. And you have no right to go ahead and offer a product or service or advice or consulting, whatever it is, to somebody if you don't know
Suriji?
I think coming from humble beginnings and starting a business was some kind of obstacle for me, and I'll tell you why. Optimal was a $20 million company with just one employee managing operations. It was hard for me to invest early on. I want to be financially fully secure before I invest.
Was it hard to get investors to invest?
No, Optimal was self-funded. I never got outside funding. Until 2008, I sold a stake to a PE firm out of New York. And then we set to triple our revenue after that and finally exit entity. But early on, the obstacle for me was not investing early on. And started investing after Optimal was already $20 million to build management team, hire the sales force, look at international operations, etc. That was after we were already $20 million company and one employee managing operations.
But in terms of, when I was talking about diversity, I was talking about skin color, I was talking about the turban, I was talking about the fact that we're not white. Was that ever an obstacle for you? Did you ever have to overcome a certain perception? And if you did, how did you?
No, actually it was never an obstacle. Actually it was an advantage for me. Because I was known for my expertise and knowledge, and turban and beard and my principles and ethic became brand for me. It became people to easily recognize me. And some of the clients from Japan would call me, we need to talk to Turbanero.
So what you're saying is your qualities became your qualification.
Yeah, and the appearance became easily recognizable. And you I think it would be easier to relate to. Most of the successful people in the world and CEOs of the large companies respect you if you follow your faith. They have an instant liking for you. Man, this guy's great, he does what he... I'll go with them to a bar or dinner and I'll be just having orange juice. And they will remember that. Hey, Suri just has orange juice. It was never a hindrance not taking alcohol or having a turban or having a beard or looking like a Sikh person. It was actually an advantage for me.
We hear a lot about your success and we're all very proud of you. But sometimes success also comes through managing failure, managing adversity. How have can you give us examples of where things almost fell off the cliff and how you managed to keep a hold of yourself and get a grip and move on?
When you run a business, there are at least one or two problems every year which make you think like you're done. And they're tough times. I was fortunate to have two people in my life. One person who worked with me, who was president of my company, Sam, very God-loving person. We'll be able to debate it out, look at the root causes and take corrective actions. Another person, Bhupi Kohli in California, was my friend and brother and uncle. From Sikhi perspective, we'll be able to debate it out. We'll be able to advise it. And lastly, my wife, she's a great support, great cheerleader. And you need cheerleader at that time.
Like I always say, you know what, behind every successful man is a very surprised wife. Fred, how do you manage failure?
How do I manage what?
Failure. Has life always been successful for you?
No, never. I got close to bankruptcy several times. And I probably would do again.
Oh, okay.
I'm serious. Let me give you an example. I had a fairly good, position with I was director of research for we did the first ATSF satellite. This is the first direct broadcasting satellite that helps you every night, every time you do. I had a flourishing consulting business, and I was doing very well in real estate. I took all my money, went to Iran because of my love of my original country, and I can tell you, I really cared. I went there, revolution, I was there for 4 years. I built a university, I trained the professors, I developed a curriculum. By the way, I had over 300 distinguished employees from India over there, including 80 of them with PhDs. It's not the first time I have had dealing with India. And the revolution came, I lost everything. And when I came to US, I almost lost my house because I couldn't make the mortgage payment.
So when you keep losing everything, how do you find yourself?
Well, I lost more than just money. I lost my original country. I lost a member of my family because they were from, minority religious group, and they were executed without their name being asked.
Right.
I had people, when I came then, I had people threatening my children. I'm not complaining, please don't misunderstand me. All I'm saying is, these things happen. And you stand up, and you start again. And this time, I did it a little bit more carefully, but I still took risk, don't get me wrong. I took a risk going to Iran. I make decisions using my heart and my head, huh? Mm-hmm. Maybe going to Iran, I use my heart too much and my head not enough.
Sukhinder, you've been in the corporate world and now in the entrepreneurial world. So how do you where have you failed and how do you overcome it?
Oh, well, as I think I mentioned, I failed many times, but I think most times when I failed, as I said, it was when that value mismatch occurred. And then sometimes you just fail because you fail. It's business. You just fail. You try something audacious and it doesn't work. How do I fail? I think when I fail, I think I'm very insular. When I fail, I just ground myself in what's important. I stay away from anything that's going to make me feel more shaky until I'm stable. It's that simple. When I left Polyvore, and I think I described it as it was my first CEO job when I quit because the founder and I didn't get along. Right. I took 3 months. I didn't read any technology newspapers. I took my family. We rented a house in Lake Tahoe and we skied. Every day I spent more time with my husband than I had in the last 7 years when I was at Google. But most importantly, I shut down the noise. Anything that was going to undermine kind of just that process of just getting over it. So when I'm trying to get over something, I just reground myself what's important. I saw my Babaji, we talked about that. I just kind of revert to what's important, and I try to stay away from anything that in that period where I'm feeling vulnerable is going to shake me. I don't need it. I hunker down a bit, and then when I'm ready to come back up, I come back up.
You mentioned family. How important are family and community in your journey, in your mission?
Well, family and community, I think, differently can be defined. Obviously, my family, and I think my faith were a big part of my growing up. For me now, there is only family and work. There is only time for both of those things. And I think in terms of community, I think there are different communities. Certainly, the SACC community in which I grew up, very close to. Quite frankly, Silicon Valley is a community for me. It's a group of like-minded people, a culture in which I thrive, and a group of people who look at failure as also success, right? So I think I went to a place and found a community of like-minded people. And so I have a community, I have my family, I have my religion, and really not that much time for anything else.
Suriji, the importance of family and community in your journey?
It's very, very important. I probably wouldn't exist without it. I value family a lot. And for me, family is more than just parents, wife, and kids. It's extended family, your uncles and aunts and nephews and nieces. I take them as family. I care about them, and they care about me. And similarly, I look at community as, without that, where would you be? Where would you belong to? Just you? It'd be hard to exist without the support of community. And community brings you strength, builds more faith in you. It's like a closed loop.
Right.
Support from community and you support community becomes a closed loop. It'd be hard for me to exist without one.
So you would never claim your success to be yours only?
No, never.
It's always
Never.
a shared.
I think I'm truly blessed. I couldn't change life boundaries. I think God is a big part of my success.
What about you, Fred?
Well, to me, because I'm an immigrant from Iran, most of my family I was not in touch with in a regular basis. So it's my wife and my children and a sister that lived in US. And my biggest regret in life is that I wish when my children were younger, I would have spent more time with them, but because I was traveling all the time and doing things, I didn't do enough of that. But I have tremendous support also from the people I work with. You know, I make the mistake, maybe some people feel, I get too close to my employees. But the positive side of that is that when you're close to your employees, you also get a lot of support and empathy and understanding of your problem. So that was very useful to me, very helpful to me. So in a moment of despair, in a sadness or failure or so on, I get strength that way. And I have to admit that it was good to have the relationship that it was beyond just employer-employee.
Right.
Yeah, that I think is important. But I have to admit, my wife deserves all the credit. Without her, I would have never done what I have done.
Very wisely said, because you're being televised. Good job. All the brothers in the house. So Kinder, you know, in your journey, and you've had a fascinating journey, you continue to do so, do you find your concept of success keeps changing or keeps evolving? Like when you started, maybe your success was maybe just financial gain or position, but now it's something else.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I would describe it more as maybe what I talked about earlier. I think what's been constant is I think I've always sought impact. I mean, I think I've always had clarity that it's not about money, it's about impact and contribution. And I think from an early time, as I said, my father led me to believe that my service to the world would be through business. So I believe those are one and the same. I don't, right, when I think about my purpose here, I'm quite certain that my highest contribution may be what I do in the business world, but that doesn't mean it's not impactful or it's not service, right? So I just look at, so I think I've been fairly consistent in the definition of success. I think I've been very restless in how to achieve it, right? And I think all that's happened as I have gotten older is maybe a little less impatient, but still quite impatient. But I feel like I was really lucky. I feel like from an early stage, you know, my mental model was you're here to do something impactful and to
So
be
your
of
measure of
service.
success is impact and change.
Impact, not even change, impact, service, yes, I mean, all of those things, whether it's the people on your team and your employees, whether it's building something that's useful for the world, you know, whether it's sharing knowledge, yeah, whether it's motivating people, I mean, it's just impact, and I don't know how to describe it any other way. It's just, I feel like I'm here for a reason, and that reason is impact, and I never feel like I've achieved it, and I always feel like I'm striving for it, and I'm okay with that.
Fred?
Well, first of all, as I mentioned before in my few minutes talk, that to me it's important for you to understand what you mean by success and what is success and what is failure. To be very blunt, making just money is the simplest thing in life, at least for me and Punjabi police. You know, you know, do I want to be Punjabi police? No. It's important to do something that makes you ultimately happy. That is.
But you know what, let's just be fair. I mean, these days, well, not these days, but the ordinary person, their first measure of success is monetary gain, because it's a great standard to set against. Once you have that, then you start maybe changing your dimensions of success.
Well, I look at some of the heroes of my life. They were not very successful financially. I don't know, maybe I'm not as well versed in history as you are, about his Indian history. Was Tagore a successful financially? Did he sell his poetries? He got a Nobel Prize. That was a successful man.
I agree. But do you find in your journey, where you started from, as you went step by step, did your dimensions of success change?
Well, as I learn more about the world, I start measuring the impact, as you were saying, differently. Now I look and I say...
Is that from a level of comfort or financial security?
Absolutely.
Right.
But I look and say, in Punjab, I have been directly and indirectly responsible for 50,000 people having jobs. That means a lot to me.
Yes, it does.
Okay? And I haven't made any money doing it. And that's okay with me.
That's because you're not Punjabified. Now when you go back with those three things, you're going to do really well.
Thank you. By the way, I'd like to take an opportunity. I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk on your behalf, but I know we like to be helpful to you, to the organization, and to doing something in Punjab. I'm sure you would too, from what I have learned about you. So please, if we can be of some help, ask us. And I like to invite you to come to Punjab, as I said earlier in my talk.
You're paying for it?
Huh?
You're paying for it?
I pay for
we'll be there,
the
not a worry.
place and the food and so on, not transportation.
Surya?
Yeah, that's all right.
Have your dimensions of success changed?
I think they do change in magnitude, at least for me.
Right.
When you start, and what Sukhinder said and Fred said, that's absolutely true. You never measure your success in terms of wealth. You always measure in terms of impact. And that's a sense of pride you get when you're running a business. It's, especially for founders, it's never creation of wealth. Wealth is usually a byproduct of what you're doing, the impact you're creating. If you're not creating impact, you won't create wealth. And if you're just working for wealth, you'll never be successful. So you should always think it is a byproduct of a value you're creating. And to measure the value, you need to look at the impact. So no denying of it. But the magnitude does change as you grow. Initially, you create an impact of certain value, and you want to do more than that. So that magnitude keeps changing or increasing.
Right.
And then it also shifts. As you grow up from looking from business perspective, you want to look at community perspective, what are you doing there? How can you create impact in that sphere of life? So it does change.
success is measured financially. Do you also, and measured by impact and change, do you also measure success by the level of influence that you can create within a community or within the country you live or within the industry that you work in?
Certainly, certainly. And I wouldn't look at as creating influence but I would look at as helping them. Influence can be taken in any way, right? So helping the community. So when I look at from my perspective, running a company for 20 years and being active in Sikh community and very like-minded people like me who have been helping Sikh non-profits for years. And we got together in 2008 saying, we all write checks to these organizations on bite sizes and we can never create governance or transparency in them.
Right.
So in 2008, we got about 5 successful Sikhs and said, we're going to bring all Sikh non-profits like a PE firm brings. Every year, we're going to have a quarterly meeting with them, and we're going to write check 10% or more of their budgets. So we can create governance for them, transparency for them, and we can hold them accountable. So if you just look at in the last 5 years, this group has returned more than $1.5 million to them.
Wow. Last question from me, and then we give it to the floor. So what would you like your legacy to be?
What would I like my legacy to be? Big question, right? Well, first of all, as we talked about, I mean, I'd like to believe that when all is said and done, I look back at a body of work and feel like it gave value to people, that it added value for people, that somehow working with those people added value. I mean, I would love to look back and say, look, yeah, I did have some measure of impact. I mean, I still come back to that word, right? I mean, I think even more than, you know, success and sort of measured by how much impact you have, we talked about it earlier. I mean, I would love at the end of the day to have looked at those values that I so aspire to in other people and say, did I learn that? By the end of my life, did I learn that? Did I learn humility? Did I learn acceptance? Could I give to other people that same feeling that people gave to me, right? So I may have that whole body of work and it may be impactful, but I may still not have that character.
Excellent. Fred? Farhad?
Yes.
How would you like to do that? What's your
Well,
legacy?
to me, maybe I'm very selfish. I really care more than anything else what my children and my immediate family thinks of me. Are they proud of their father or they're ashamed of their father? Is my wife feel that I have been a decent husband or not? After that is my employees. I care about them. This is the truth. I'm not saying this for any propaganda or anything, but if you ask, every time I go to India, and it's quite often, at least once a month, I sit with all the workers. I know I learned that from the Sikhs maybe, but maybe I am in previous life was. But I sit there and eat with them and talk with them, and they tell me that first they were distant, they were scared. You know, this guy should never talk to us. But I want them to feel I did something good for them. That is important. And you can't measure that on intellectual level or financial and so on. I've made their life better. You know, they have a steady job, they're making good money, they're happy, but I'm trying to help them do more, and I want them to remember me that way. The rest of the world, I don't give a damn.
It's a difficult question.
I told you to bring some
I agree with Fred. And I was thinking about it just 2-3 days ago, having discussion with my wife. You know, what legacy would I like to leave? And we had a discussion about 20 minutes on that topic. And I told her, you tell me based on what I do, what I've done, and what things I value in my life, what legacy would you think if I die tomorrow? I asked her that question because I didn't want her to think what I would do. I wanted to tell her now what legacy would I leave if I died today. Her answer was that I've tried to carry out my relationships best to my abilities. Be a good son to a father, be a good brother, be a good husband to a wife, be a good father, be a good uncle to my nephews and nieces, be a good friend to my friends, be a good community member. Anybody who comes to help, I would not deny that if I could help that person. That was her words.
It's interesting because none of you seem to have an ego about yourselves. It's just about being good.
I think so.
And doing
that's what I hear. I agree. I think ultimately, you know, maybe it's my upbringing and so on. I believe that there is good things and bad things. And it's difficult always to be good. I admit I have not been good all the time.
Me too.
Yeah. But I really like to be that way. And I like to be remembered as a good person.
Right.
By people who I care about. The general people, no, I'm not so concerned. To be very honest, it's irrelevant to me what public thinks of me.
Well, you know, life is made up of a sum of moments, and this for me has been one of them. So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen. How are you? We're going to open up the floor to some questions.
My name is Veer Pratap Grewal, and I firstly want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and sharing with us your experiences with professional success. My question tonight is from Cassidy. What would you recommend that I, a junior in high school, and other Sikh students my age do now to find professional and entrepreneurial success later in life?
Professional or entrepreneurial success, broadly defined?
Yes.
Number one, work harder than anyone else. Anyone else. Anyone else. Did I say that enough times? Anyone else. I do actually think that is a big, big part of it. Number two, look at the people closest to you. They're likely to be your mentors. I think people look really far and wide for people to be their mentors, and I always felt like my biggest mentors in high school, my father, think about what a big figure he's been in my life, like, you know, incredible. My mother, a doctor for almost 50 years. A high school teacher who basically, all my high school teachers who just invested in me, right? And in some ways reflected back to me what I was good at. So I would just say, like, you know, you have access to all these incredible people who believe in you already. Tap into them.
Ms. Cassidy, gentlemen, it is a pleasure to see your panel. A question for my wife Sujita and Manmeet Broad, myself. We saw this movie called India's Daughter on the previous documentary of late. And just want to get the perspective of the panel if you folks saw it as an overbearing lecture from the Western media, i.e. BBC and ABC News on Indians, or did you see it as a self-reflection that we all Indians need to see? As a proud Punjabi American, I feel ashamed that Punjab has the highest female feticide in India. So to the whole panel, and Ms. Cassidy, not to put in the spot, would like to get a perspective on the movie India's Daughter, which showcased the plight of Indian women in India.
Look, I think in India this is raising a lot of controversy that this movie would even be shown. But as you know, it's a female Indian filmmaker, you know, trying to bring that story to light. And look, generally speaking, you know, I am a believer in freedom of expression, free speech. Everybody who watches that movie would tell you, you know, I haven't seen it, but I know that the feedback on it is that it's deplorable. But it is important that it's amplified. I mean, my feeling overall is that, you know, when things outrageous happen in the world, people who step out to amplify them, you know, our job is to pay attention. So I'm as disturbed as everyone else, but I applaud the female filmmaker who took the time to tell that story, despite what the Indian government thinks.
Okay, so we have the next question now. Hello, my name is Jazz. My question is around ideas and investment. So in today's venture times, would you say that an idea is enough to get funding, or you need a solid business plan and a prototype and a working model that's already producing revenue? For the three of you on the panel, what would convince you, or what would make you invest in an idea personally?
For me, the idea has to be unique and scalable. If I can see those two things and I see the passion in founder, I'll probably invest in that. But I have to test it whether it's a scalable or not.
So for me, what I perceive is that it is in fact harder and harder to get funding on just a business plan and an idea. Certainly in the part of the world where I live in, Silicon Valley, now first rounds of funding come after a product is live. So I think the bar for entrepreneurs who want funding is higher. People expect to see that you can deliver even a beta product to the market without funding or with your own funding. That is certainly a new reality for most angel investors in kind of areas of technology in Silicon Valley. And for what I personally invest in, I only invest in areas I know, and I look for all those same qualities. Of course, scalable, of course, differentiated. But I personally believe that angel investing, it's hard, you know, it's very hard to be good at angel investing, right? So I typically invest my dollars, if I do any investing, it's first and foremost in my own business, because that's the highest return for my time and even my money, because I'm betting on myself and what I know. And then if I back other entrepreneurs, it's typically around domains or areas that I know well, where I feel like I have some unique contribution and can understand the idea deeply.
For me, it's quite different. Again, maybe it's about my selfishness. I have to like the idea. It has to be consistent with my ethics and value system. Example, if you want to make a bigger tank, I have no interest in it. But if you tell me that you have an idea that we could educate people in India to learn skills, plumber, electrician, what have you, believe me, even if he loses money, I'll support it.
Cam's advice, just last two questions, so second last.
Hi, my direct question to Sukhinder. The question is, I believe that you're very successful and entrepreneur at a very early age. The question is, how do you replicate yourself? You know, on one of your slides, you said that hire your successor, the person who has not done a work before. So how do you make a replica of yourself so that you can leave the legacy behind, you know, forever?
I would find it frightening to make a replica of myself, by the way. I think that would be a scary thing to think about. So are you asking how do you hire? Is that, or are you asking a more nuanced question? Yes.
Hello, yeah. So it was not just a hiring, but like, for example, you are by yourself, right? How do you make you know, people around you, and you can motivate to become like you and to become a successful, you know?
So first of all, I think that to be successful, I think you don't I generally don't try and hire people who are just like me, because then they come with all my same biases and failures. So my own success, you know, has been by hiring great leaders who complement me, who have the things that I don't. I have a great co-founder at Joyous who is you know, even more deliberate and thoughtful, incredibly patient, high consensus builder, still a great leader, right? But a great compliment to me. So typically speaking, if I want to build a great organization, I don't look for my people who are like me. I look for people who share my values. You know, I look for people who share my values, and I look for people with very complementary skill sets. And then the last thing I look for that's probably common, high amount of willpower, high amount of brain power, high amount of empathy, EQ.
I guess second last question. This question is for Fred. Fred, not that we don't appreciate you going to Punjab. Thank you for that, and I think you set a wonderful example for everybody. But why Punjab? What was the reason?
I knew I'm going to get hit by that. Let me come here. Those lights are too much on my eyes, so I can. This is a very important question. The logical answer to that is because I love architecture, and one of the greatest architects in the world, Corbusier, designed Chandigarh, and I've always heard about it, and I want to go there and feel it and sense it. Another logical explanation is one of my very senior people, head of our R&D in one of my biggest company, Cork, was from there, and we wanted to set up operation there in Punjab. So we thought that's logical. But that's not the whole story. That's just rationalization. The real reason for that was I couldn't go back to Iran. And Punjabis are the closest to my heart because you have the same problem we do and the same greatness. That's why. Thank you.
That was the last question. A big round of applause to our panel, please. Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, Fred Abraham, Gurvinder Suri, and my partner in crime, Vip Jaswal, everybody. A big round of applause. So it wouldn't be an event if we didn't have some awards. So I promised to keep them short and sweet. At this time, I would like to ask the President of the SACC, Sukhinder Singh Gala, to present the first award to Sukhinder Singh Cassidy. In appreciation of all that she does to help bring recognition to our community, but also for finally making the time and really working hard to come to this event. We sincerely appreciate it. And next, I would like to ask from the Board of Directors, Ankar Singh and Yadvinder Singh, to come to the stage to present our funny man, Fred Abrahami, and an inspiration to all of us on giving back with his recognition and award. A big round of applause, everybody. I would like to ask from our board, Jasveer Singh Chandi and Danbir Singh, to come to the stage at this time to present Gurvinder Suri with his recognition and honor for being such an inspiring Sikh. Big round of applause, everybody. From our board, Harpajan Singh and Rajwinder Badesha, to give my friend Vip his recognition and award. What a great job he did at moderating, everybody. A big round of applause. Thank you. Big round of applause. So I wasn't joking when I said that this gala takes a lot of hard work. And our gala team, our core team, really worked hard for many months to put this together, almost a year. And so at this time, I would like that we recognize our gala team. If I could have Harveer Singh, Harjeet Singh, Gundeep Singh, and Jasminder Kaur come up to the stage, please, with Sukhwinder Singh, our president, to recognize and honor, and a big round of applause, everybody, for this team who worked so hard to put this gala together. I thought I was the only one who loved the mic, but Harjeet wants to say 30 seconds. I'm timing.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for being here today, Ravinder Suri, Sukhwinder, and as well as Fred. But the most person in my heart who has a place at this moment is Sukhwinder Kale. For the last 4 years, he has been working hard. And I hate to say this, but last week I was in his office and his team complained because he couldn't give him 30 seconds. We were there for a press conference for TV Asia, Just Punjabi and PTC Punjabi, as well as Global Punjab. I don't want to get cursed out of, from Harpajan Singh because I didn't mention his channel. But anyways, for this guy only, for the last 4 years, he has been working relentlessly to create a community of Punjabis who thinks of each other. I will tell you a little story. I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little more than 30 seconds. I was working for Morgan Stanley. I got laid off. I didn't have anybody to think of to send my resume. I posted my resume behind a cab in a folder to get a job, just like $25, $30 an hour. Somebody discovered me in a private equity fund. He's like, you work for Morgan Stanley, Oppenheimer. Why are you here? He's like, then he called me on a Monday. He's like, can you come for an interview today? I went for an interview. He's like, Harjeet, this is your salary. This is your success rate. Can you come and raise $500 million for me? Then I realized, yes, I can, because I was driving a taxi, goddammit. And I realized we don't have anybody in the Sikh or Punjabi or Indian network that I could reach out to. Why SACC makes sense for me? Why does it make sense for me? Because now I have all of you to reach out to. I have Sukhwinder Kela to reach out to, Harveer Singh or Gundeep Singh or Kam Atwal to reach out to their network who could offer me a job. For a choti ji naukri li, sale 50-55,000 li manu lokan nu beg karna paya. But I think this guy makes it possible to build an SACC network.
Thank you so much. And I'm not getting off the stage without, I'm not taking more than 10 seconds, but I'm not getting off the stage without thanking Cam as well. She's too generous to not include her name in the Gala team, but she is our hidden hero. So let's give a round of applause for Cam as well. She's truly been an awesome, awesome leader. Thank you so much all for being so patient.
at this time, so we also were very lucky to have some very distinguished guests who joined us today. I would like to call Ravi Singh, Jaskan Shekho, and Inderjeet Maan from our Kentucky chapter to present the following awards to individuals who have shown their commitment and their passion for this cause and continue to support us on a daily basis. Harpal Singh, who is the owner of the JW Marriott in Chandigarh. S.P. Oberoi, the chairman of the Apex Group Companies. And Navneet Chugg, who is a speaker from last year and the managing director of the Chugg firm. He came back even if he wasn't speaking. Everybody, a loud round of applause, please. S.P. Oberoi, Ijuman. Inderjeet Maan to S.P. Oberoi, please. Everybody, a big round of applause. Harpal Singh and Ravinder Singh. Big round of applause. And I think Mr. Chugg may be a little hungry. Perfect. I'll get that to him. He was here, I swear. A big round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Everybody, one big group picture. Perfect. Thank you. Almost done, I swear. At this time, I also want to thank our premier media partners from Just Punjabi, Penny Sandhu and Harinder Yar, and from Global, Harbhajan Singh and Suman Kaur. A big round of applause for all of their support on the media for us and making sure that this event and all of the promotion associated with it got to all of you. So, I'm going to call him out. I know he's going to be upset at me. I'll probably hear about this all week. I'd like to call up Sequinder Singh Kela to say 10 seconds. I swear it's 10. From our president of the SACC, my husband, who I'm very proud of, and whose passion drives us every single day. Everybody, a big round of applause for Sequinder Singh Kela.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to quickly say thank you to everyone for coming here, joining forces. And if we join forces as a community, we can be a role model for other minority communities, and that is my vision with this institution here. So thank you so much for sharing that vision and coming here to make our community be a very successful community. Thank you. And thank you to my team here. Thank you to media partners. Thank you so much.
Very big round of applause, please. I was reminded that if you would like to join our angel fund or our credit union, there are forms outside. And I thank you once again for joining us. This was our 4th year, and I look forward to many, many, many more with all of you. A thank you to our wonderful speakers, Sequinder, Gurvinder, and Fred. Always a pleasure. And Vip, there's not enough words to say how multi-talented you are. Comedic relief at the exact same time as a wonderful moderator. Everybody, thank you for coming out in the snow. Thank you for being a part of our gala. Please, leave a footprint. Be a part of something more. Leave a lasting impression in this world. Join forces together and be a part of success. Thank you, and good night.